Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. It's great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, is John Steenhuisen exiting the DA leadership race as reported? Why is he exiting the race just 2 months before the party's elective conference? And what kind of leader does the DA need to advance the party's electoral fortunes and leadership? The former leader of the Democratic Alliance, Tony Leon, joins us in a moment. Also on the show, why is the Speaker of Parliament reluctant to subpoena Brown Mogotsi and O'Sullivan to appear before the Ad Hoc committee investigating allegations of corruption and interference in the criminal justice system? The committee has been trying to subpoena the two witnesses for a while now, but the Speaker of Parliament says without considering the concerns raised by these witnesses adequately, this may come back to haunt Parliament. But members of Parliament who sit on that committee believe that these witnesses have placed unreasonable conditions on their physical appearance and must be subpoenaed ASAP. So two of those MPs, Action SA's Darlene James and the MK Party's Sibonelo Nomvalo, speak to us. And then later, is South Africa's sovereignty at risk? A call is being made for all people of South Africa to stand together and unite against threats to our sovereignty and intimidation against those who stand for justice globally. One of the people making that call is struggle veteran Frank Chikane. He joins us tonight. But first, my comment. So it was another day, another witness at the Madlanga Commission. Witness F was on the stand today, and he is that senior officer alleged to have acted as the money collector for suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. There was drama this morning before the testimony continued. His lawyer announced that he has now launched an urgent application to postpone his testimony at the Madlanga Commission, arguing that as someone who is now facing criminal investigations, he fears implicating himself. So he tried to request for a postponement.
Commissioner, must appreciate and thank the Commission for having granted us the postponement last week. And indeed, we definitely used off the time to the best of our ability as was granted since last week. However, since we started finalizing the documentation, certain things really cropped up and showed and change the direction that we were taking, which therefore since necessitated this application. As it's commonly known, we are the creatures of instruction. It's our client instruction then to bring an urgent application in the High Court, purely and solely for two reasons. As the Commission is in possession of the papers, I take that the papers might have been read and apologize that they've been submitted to the Commission almost on the 11th hour. The first reason, Commission, is the same reason, one of the reasons that we mentioned last week, that the applicant, before he could even make his first written submission to the Commission on the 17th of December, an interim report was already been issued, which we fully understand and correctly so in terms of section 10.4 of the terms of reference, that the Commission is entitled to do so. But 2 days before he could even make his first written submission, an interim report has already been issued, which had recommendations and findings and recommendations against him. Unbeknown, and obviously we do not have access to that particular interim report, but just a day before our appearance on the 30th of January, which is last week, Friday, the state president publicly announced that he accepted the same report, and therefore an announcement was made that he needs to be charged.
Now, after a back and forth with the commissioners, his testimony continued, and the WhatsApp messages between witness F and Vusmuzi Ket Matlala seemed to reveal that the witness acted as a middleman between Matlala and suspended SAP's Deputy Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya. So these chats allegedly showed Matlala gifted Sibiya impalas, raising serious questions about their relationship and potential influence. But witness F denied that he knew who was speaking in the voice note that Matlala sent to him about the impalas.
I say, sorry to bother you so early. Can you send me a pin drop to where the box, to where the impalas must go, please, sir? If you can just send me a pin drop where it must go to.
Can you describe what that voice note was about?
First tell us, sorry, witness, first tell us who's speaking and then respond to Advocate Shaskalsin's question.
Commissioners, the person who's speaking in that voice note, I don't know him. It was the message that was sent to me. I can't remember by who. For now, I can't answer that who exactly was that in my matter.
Explaining his relationship with prominent Pretoria-based taxi boss Mswazi Msibi, this witness said that he was raised by him from primary to high school. He added that he looked up to him as a father and Msibi looked up to him as a son.
Witness F, your relationship with Mswazi taxi boss, that's how he's described in your chats. What was your relationship with him?
Thank you, Commissioner. I was raised by Mswazi when I was still in primary, up until I've matriculated. I was staying with him, Commissioner, up until grade 11. That is my relationship. I was looking up to him as a father. He looked up to me as a son. That is basically our relationship.
Just tell me, is this how you saved him on your phone, Mswazi taxi boss? Is that how you saved him on your phone?
This is how he preferred to be called, Big Boss.
So the question we're asking you tonight is, what do you make of the testimony of Witness F today, and what do you think the WhatsApp messages discussed reveal about his relationship with Ket Matala? You can send us your comment by sending us an X on @FaceTheNation SABC. Alternatively, you can give us a call on 011 714 0677. Now, DA leader John Steenhuisen is expected to announce his withdrawal from the party's leadership race tomorrow. At least that's what's being reported. Steenhuisen is set to make the announcement at a media briefing about his political future. This follows a public spat with former Environmental Affairs Minister Dr. Dion George and accusations of using the official party credit card for personal expenses. The party's Federal Legal Counsel has cleared Steenhuisen, and George has since resigned from the party, but investigations still continue. Let's bring in the former leader of the Democratic Alliance now, Tony Leon, who joins us via Zoom. Tony, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks very much for having me, Clement.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again.
Were you surprised at all by these reports earlier today that John Steenhuisen plans to bow out of the leadership race, or at least announce that he won't be entering it?
I wasn't entirely surprised because, you know, on the eve, or it's not quite the eve, but before any party elective Congress, and my old experience, the Democratic Alliance, there's always a lot of swirl around leadership and who's going to stand and who's in and who's out. And there has been a lot of controversy around John and some other leadership figures. So if in fact he announces he's going to stand down or not stand again, then I suppose it would be, you know, broadly have been expected. And I guess, without, and this really is a guess, I'm not speaking from any insider knowledge here, and I don't want to have any, particularly in this matter, that a Congress is a very good time for party not just look at personalities, because leadership issues, if they're contests or non-contests are not just about personalities, they're also about positioning. And, to John Steenhuisen's credit, he took the party into government for the first time in the 25-year existence of the party. But that's raised a lot of questions. One of them, and I'm not going into any of the personal detail that Dion George trawled in public about John Steenhuisen's use or alleged abuse, because I don't think that actually advances much more important issues. And those issues are, what is the party standing for?
Yeah.
Where's it going? What's the direction of travel? And a party congress is actually the opportunity where it's not just a few leaders at the top stage dictating the direction of travel, but for the party rank and file to say, this is what we want, this is what we expect, this is what we're going to hold the leadership to account for. And that's why a leadership contest or a leadership announcement before a party congress is clarifying, but it's not conclusive, if you get the distinction.
I get it. I suppose what's also important is for a party to have a succession plan of sorts. How important is a succession plan in any organization, and do you believe that the DA has one?
Well, I think it's probably a bit risky for any leader to hand pick or anoint their successor. There's a long history, not just in the world or in South Africa. You recall the disaster in the ANC when Jacob Zuma handpicked Dr. Zuma, his former wife, as his successor, and then the delegates decide otherwise. So I think if leaders, and I speak for myself here, there was a very lively contest when I stood down as leader of the Democratic Alliance in 2007. There were three candidates, Helen Zille, Athol Trollip, and Joe Ceremoni. And although there were certain allegations made by one of the parties, I never influenced a single delegate to cast their vote in any one direction. And Helen was elected by a thumping majority. And I think that added to her legitimacy because she wasn't handpicked by her predecessor.
Yeah. You wrote an opinion piece not so long ago talking about the battle between John and Dion George. And you said this battle within the party is a distraction in what should be a watershed election year for the organization. So you were clear that this tit for tat we saw from both leaders could have an impact on the organization. And I interviewed Helen Zille a week ago, and I asked her if she agreed with you, and she said she did. How does this decision by John, if it really happens tomorrow, help avoid that impact on the organization?
Well, let me go back without going into ancient history, but I'll just tell you as a fact, because I looked it up in anticipation of some grilling, Clement. When the DA has been around for 25 years, since the year 2000, and I led it for the first period, and then Helen Zille, and then Musi Maimane, and then John Steenhuisen. Every leader stood down. Musi in controversial and contested circumstances, the other two, Helen and me, more or less of our own choosing, and without controversy. But here's what the scoreboard shows. Every time a leader of the DA has stood down and another leader has been elected, in the next election, the party's done better. Now, you can say, well, that's a reflection that, Zille's better than Leon, or Maimane's better than Zille, or Steenhuisen's better than Maimane. Actually, it's not that, I think. In essence, it means, and you saw this in the ANC when Ramaphosa took over in 2007 from Zuma, is that when a party chooses a new leader, it sends a message to the voting base that this party is refashioning itself, it's refreshing itself, it is reviving. And I think just the act, you can choose a very bad leader and there can be all kinds of but the short-term gain of a leadership change, just looking at the history of the DA over the last 25 years, indicates that there's likely to be an uptick, an upswell maybe, of support for the party because it looks like it's renewing itself. And I think that's an important signal to voters. Now, there are a lot of other factors, of course, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but just looking at the last 25 years, that has been an invariable result of a leadership change, at least on the DA side, and probably actually, on the ANC side as well in the corresponding period.
So does it not matter how long that leader has particularly served? And I'm asking, that...
No, well, it probably does. I think, look, I was around for 13 years. That's a bit of a self-immolating comment for me to make, but really I led the DP for the first 6 and then the DA for 7 years. And Helen served 8 and Musi 4 and John has served about 5. So, I think the party doesn't sort of have leaders for life. It certainly doesn't have leaders for life. And I think, in the modern world, I don't think a leader after 7 or 8 years can do much more. I mean, in the United States, I have probably a terrible example to use right now. They term limit their presidents to 8 years, 2 consecutive 4 years, if you're lucky enough to be re-elected, or two terms of 4 years each. And, I think in any organization, not just in politics, a leadership renewal or change can be a positive thing. Can be. There's no certainty in any of this. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. Do you think that, John Steenhuisen had any choice here in your view? Because yes, he has been cleared of allegations made by the party's former finance chairperson, Dion George, that he allegedly abused party funds for personal use. But he's still facing disciplinary action for bringing the party into disrepute over his public fallout. So he was going to enter this leadership race with that cloud hanging over his head.
Well, look, there's been a narrative, and I don't know the merits of the narrative at all. I haven't looked at the detail, and I'm not going to. And I think one of the challenges for any leader, and I'm not personalizing around John Steenhuisen, is to actually control the narrative. If you lose control of the narrative starts saying, oh, you're being investigated, there's this and there's that, then I think it makes your leadership more challenging. And maybe, and I really don't know because I don't have, and I haven't sought the inside track on what might be said tomorrow, that maybe John Steenhuisen thinks that he doesn't want the narrative to just get away from him. He wants to take charge of the narrative and to reclaim his own legacy. Look, he is the first DA leader in the 25-year history of the party to lead the party into government. That hasn't been without its challenges and controversies, but that's a win. And also, frankly, stabilizing the party after the very unhappy circumstances of the last leadership change in 2019 was also an achievement. So if it was me, and I decided to stand down because I'd done all reasonably that could be done, and I knew if I didn't jump, I was going to be pushed. So rather jump than get pushed is always my advice to leaders, past, present, and certainly in the future. And if he took the view, well, I'm going to pocket the wins, and I think the party will be better off with a refreshed leadership, I think that's a good choice. If that's a decision he announces tomorrow, I don't know what he's going to say. Yeah.
And do you think that there's enough capacity within the Democratic Alliance, for it to produce a leader that the DA needs right now? Should Steenhuisen follow through with this announcement tomorrow? As you say, we don't really know for sure if that's what he's going to announce. But if he does follow through with it, does it pave the way for Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis to throw his hat in the ring? He has repeatedly said he would not vie for the leadership position if he had to compete against Steenhuisen. But I suppose my question is more broad about the capacity within the Democratic Alliance and the kind of leader that the DA needs right now.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. And look, Jordan, whom I've known for many years since he was at school, but I'm much older than him, is a person possessed of an unusual skill set. And I think we've seen that on the ground in Cape Town. And I think as people become exposed to his personality, to his style, to his value system, I think that he will impress them. That's my guess. So I think he is a natural leader. Whether he becomes the leader of the party is entirely for the party to decide, and certainly not my say-so is not going to influence that one way or the other. So I think he's very skilled. I think there's some other reasonably actually quite good leadership candidates, potential candidates in the party. And you know what I've said? A lot of people in the DA world and outside the DA world started beating a path to my door, literally and virtually, and say, oh, the party's this, party's that, do something. And I said, look, it's not for me, or however well-informed commentators are, they're very important, to say this is what the leader should do, or the next leader might do, or who should be the next leader. It's for the party as an institution. I keep saying this, and I'm not saying it to be evasive, but if the DA doesn't have the self-confidence and the wherewithal for its own members, its own rank and file, to actually make a decision on who's going to lead it, and more particularly, what that leader is going to bring literally to the party in all sense of the word, and offer to the public, and how the leader is going to answer the big challenge. And the challenge, if you take out all the personalized attacks, which I really deprecate, that Dion George incidentally made, but it's not him alone, in his fiery and I thought very personalized letter of resignation, was to say, well, the DA's voice has been muzzled inside the government and it can't hold the ANC to account. Now, that's a question. There's not an easy answer. And I wouldn't suggest the DA walks out the government tomorrow, because then they'll have all kinds of negative impacts and implications, not just for the party, but for the country and for the wider world as how it views South Africa. But I think whoever is going to be the leader of the DA at the April Congress, they retain the John stands again, if more likely doesn't stand, has to answer that question in an authentic and proper way.
Yeah, speaking of authenticity, let me get your authentic answer on this question. If, as a former leader of the DA, if you were to give John Steenhuisen advice tonight ahead of that press briefing, what do you say to him?
I'd tell him in confidence. I wouldn't announce it to the country because, you know, once again, I don't want to be seen as being the former leader who tries to direct how the current leadership. I'm very happy to talk about what I think an effective leader is and offer whatever experiences I have from my time and how they might, or probably a lot of them don't apply today to the very changed circumstances that the party and the country finds so in. But I don't want to, use public platforms to reveal what might be a privileged conversation because it won't advance the argument one way or the other.
Tony, let me thank you for making time for us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
The former leader of the Democratic Alliance. After the break, why is the Speaker of Parliament reluctant to issue subpoenas to Brown Mogotsi and Paul O'Sullivan? We'll speak to one of the members of Parliament who sit on the Ad Hoc committee investigating allegations of corruption and interference in the criminal justice system. They are not happy that the Speaker is dilly-dallying and wasting time before those subpoenas are issued. Stay with us for that conversation. Welcome back. So there's breaking news coming through this evening. 6 people have been killed and several injured following a shooting incident on the R59 near Meyerton in the south of Johannesburg. Police confirmed earlier that 2 suspects have been arrested. SABC News reporter Kelvin Dludla is at the scene for us. In fact, let's take you there live. There seems to be a media conference there. Kelvin, just giving us update about what transpired. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Clement, and to our SABC viewers at home. We are on the R59 here in Meyerton. Meyerton is on the Val. That is where we got reports by provincial subs that 6 people were shot dead. The details are still scant, but as you can see behind me, forensic investigators are on the scene wearing white protective coveralls, making sure that they gather evidence. But the provincial, the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Brigadier Major General Fred Kekana is here just to give us a sense of what really transpired here. Thank you very much, Major General Fred Kekana, for your time. You can just explain to our viewers at home what really transpired here.
All right, no, thanks very much. This afternoon, a bus traveling from Johannesburg Park Station en route to Lesotho was accosted by a white juke vehicle. The vehicle, they were shooting at them. They started shooting at the vehicle at the Kumbi unprovoked, and up to this place right behind us. The driver of the bus tried to avoid and push them off the road so that they don't continue shooting at them and causing harm. And fortunately, he managed to distract them. The Duke had to cross over the bridge, a small bridge here, and those passengers who were shooting jumped out of their vehicle, went upstairs here on the bridge, hijacked a Datsun Go, and in that process, the K9 unit members and vehicle crime investigation unit were driving unmarked vehicles, driving past on top. They saw a lady screaming. They asked what happened. She pointed the vehicle which she was driving, that she was just being hijacked. They followed up, then they chased and ensued up to Klepprefir area. That's where they managed to get the vehicle because it landed into a ditch. The 3 suspects jumped out, and later on, drones and choppers were mobilized, and we managed to capture 2 suspects immediately right there and there. And at a later stage, when we called our biological dogs and explosive dogs, we managed to arrest the 3rd suspect. All 3 suspects that hijacked that vehicle here, and those who shot even at this bus, all 3 of them were hijacked. And also, when we checked the Duke now, this vehicle which they were driving in, we found out this vehicle was robbed or stolen in Witbank during September 2025. Currently, 6 people, 4 females lost their lives, unfortunately, and 2 males also lost their lives. 18 people are currently in hospital under treatment. The team is still on the ground, and the firearms are still being followed up. And all the teams that were mobilized from Meyaton Police Station, Klepprefir Police Station, our private security that came in, Midval, crime prevention wardens, and K9 public order policing, and vehicle theft unit managed to assist each other. And out of that, this is what the results is, where all 3 suspects were arrested. And the scene is still on. Our forensic team is still on the ground processing the scene to ensure that the job is done thoroughly to the expected level. And all the deceased are Lesotho nationals, including the injured are Lesotho nationals.
Where are the injured ones?
All 18 suspects were injured. They were driving in this bus because it rolled, and 6 of those who passed on also were shot at.
Can you say that your members acted swiftly on this?
Yeah, excellently. Alertness, to be vigilant, is what is expected of a law enforcement or police officer. And that was displayed immediately when the lady screamed. When they were driving, doing normal crime prevention patrols, that's when they observed something is not right. When they asked the lady what's going on, the car was still moving, and that's how they ensued, a chase ensued, and successfully managed to arrest the suspect. It's unfortunate we lost 6 lives, but they'll have to go and face justice.
Thank you very much. That was Major General Fred Chikane, the Deputy Provincial Commissioner of the South African Police Service here in Gauteng, explaining on what transpired here on R59 in Meyaton on the Vaal.
Calvin, thank you so much for that update. Let's move to this now. Opposition parties at the Ad Hoc committee have raised concerns over delays in compelling Paul O'Sullivan and Brown Mogotsi to appear before the committee. Action SA has called for urgent action to end this stalemate. The MK Party and other organizations have also been warning that prolonged delays are undermining the committee's work and wasting taxpayers' resources. The committee received cautionary legal advice from the National Assembly Speaker Togo Titiza, who emphasized the need to properly engage security concerns raised by the witnesses before issuing these subpoenas. Sibonelo Nomvalo is a member of the Ad Hoc committee, who is also a member of Parliament for the MK Party, joins us now via Zoom. Sibonelo, thank you so much for making time. Good evening.
Good evening, Clement, and good evening to the viewers at home.
So following this advice from the Speaker of Parliament, has the Ad Hoc committee officially responded to her?
No, we responded on the spot when the advice was presented by the technical team during our committee meeting, which was dealing with housekeeping issues. And our response was very short and clear. We said we are not accepting the Speaker's advice for various reasons. And one of those reasons is that Paul O'Sullivan made it clear last year that he has no regard of Parliament. One, he threatened members of Parliament. Two, he threatened the witnesses who appeared before the Ad Hoc committee. And three, he made it clear last year that he can not appear before the committee physically. He can only appear visually, and he will appear visually on condition that it doesn't respond to questions raised by the MK Party, EFF, and Action SA. Now, there are two requirements for you, Clement, to subpoena an individual. One, the person you subpoena must show a sign of refusal. Two, he must fail to attend when we have summoned them to come and appear before Parliament. Those indications have been clearly made by Paul O'Sullivan, and the Speaker does not live in a different planet here. She lives here in South Africa. Paul O'Sullivan was all over the media last year. The threats that he was sending to witnesses who appeared before us are known by everyone in South Africa, and the Speaker never acted. She never condemned that behavior. She only speaks now when she tells us about concerns, about security concerns, which have no basis, by the way, because in terms of procedure, in terms of the South African law, for you to tell us about security concerns, there must be a report for the threat assessment that has been made by the police. You don't just wake up, Clement, in the morning and say you have security concerns. You go to the police, the police must do an assessment, and thereafter you produce a report which confirms that indeed there is a security threat to your life. Now, that has not been shown. As a first basic requirement, the Speaker was supposed to say, give us a report from the police which confirms that indeed there are security threats against you or towards you. And after satisfying herself that indeed there is that report, then he should have raised these concerns which are baseless that she is raising now.
Have you sent additional information to her, the Speaker that is? Because basically what she has also said is that as the committee you haven't done your job to properly explain to her how far you have gone in engaging and considering the concerns raised by both Brown Mogotsi and Paul O'Sullivan. She's basically saying you have not given due consideration to their applications.
No, who must give information here, Clement? We are not the ones here. We are not raising any security concern. Brown Mogotsi must have produced a report from the police which confirms that there are security threats against him. Like I'm saying, that you don't just wake up in the morning. You don't just behave like a spoiled brat because one day you are going to tell us here that you want pizza, you want bacon, you want eggs, you want Parliament to buy gifts for your girlfriend for the Valentine's Day. There must be a report from the police who are trained, who confirm that indeed there are security threats against you. What we are saying here, Clement, is that the Speaker is failing to assist the Ad Hoc committee to utilize instruments that are at the disposal of Parliament in this context. Section 56 of the Constitution gives powers to Parliament or any committee of Parliament to summon any person to come and appear before Parliament to adduce evidence or any information that is relevant at that particular time. The rules of Parliament allow us to subpoena and summon any member of the public. The terms of reference that we ourselves as the Ad Hoc committee developed give us an opportunity or gives us powers or authority rather to summon any person. So we're saying we've got all the instruments that we need here to expedite these subpoenas, and we can't be dilly-dallying, we can't be nursing baseless concerns raised by Brown Mogotsi, who is just playing politics, and Paul O'Sullivan.
One of the things the Speaker spokesperson said earlier today was that the Speaker is just trying to be cautious here. She doesn't want a situation where she's taken to court or maybe something, God forbid, happens to any of these witnesses, especially Brown Mogotsi, who's raised issues around his security and concerns around that, and then this comes back to haunt Parliament. So one of the questions that the spokesperson of Parliament put out was, have you, as the committee, for instance, figured out from Brown Mogotsi how much his security would cost if Parliament were to pay for it? Because he says his security is more advanced and the parliamentary protection services, the security officers there wouldn't be able to do the job that his specialized protectors actually are skilled for.
You know, what Brown Mogotsi is doing here is in tantamount with the undermining of the rule of law. Because number one, all witnesses who appear before the Ad Hoc committee must be treated equal. No one must receive a special treatment here. Number two, we as the committee ventilated Mogotsi's demands, and we reached a conclusion that these demands are ridiculous because there is a parliamentary protection service that we use as members of parliament at Clement. Myself, I don't know the security services that are protecting our lives every day here in parliament. Security services will protect us from the airport to parliament, from parliament to our villages where we stay. We don't know them, we don't know where they, but we give the benefit of the doubt to the state, even though we might have reservations, because we understand that demanding more security protection is going to tamper with the taxpayers' money. South Africa does have a problem here of socio-economic challenges, so we must be considerate of those realities and not make ridiculous demands. Brown Mogotsi, where he is now, I can tell you, he's under no protection. He's just in the village, staying there, because there's no threat against him. And then when he comes here, he thinks he must receive a standing ovation. He thinks we must clap hands for him. Why not his fans? His fans are there in the ANC, are those for whom he requested monies from Matlala to travel to the January 8th of the ANC, not us. He is here as a person of interest, and he must allow to be equal to everybody who has appeared before the Ad Hoc committee.
Sibonelo Nomvalo, thank you so much for speaking to us. He sits on that Ad Hoc committee, but also is a member of Parliament for the MK party. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. The South African chapter of the anti-apartheid movement on Palestine has raised alarm over what it describes as growing external pressure threatening South Africa's sovereignty. The movement has warned against intimidation linked to the country's genocide case at the International Court of Justice. In a strongly worded statement, it's called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to refuse to accept the credentials of the United States Ambassador Designate Leo Brand Bozel III. He was sworn in as Ambassador Designate to South Africa and will assume his duties once he presents his credentials to Ramaphosa. Reverend Chikane is the chair of the SA chapter of the anti-apartheid movement on Palestine and joins us now. Reverend Chikane, thank you for making time. Good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to your listeners and those watching your phone.
So one of the things you're calling for is for South Africa to really consider seriously the credentials of this ambassador designate from the US and not accept them for now. But don't you think that that is going to defeat, suppose, the purpose? Government is trying so hard to try and resolve the tensions between South Africa and the US. And if they make this move, it's going to make it worse.
Well, you know, the issue here is that ambassadors are appointed to help to correct a relationship between two countries, or improve it or work on it. But if you have an ambassador who says, I'm going there to deal with them, I'm going there to make sure they withdraw that case at the International Court of Justice, that ambassador is not coming here to help us fix the relationship between South Africa and the United States. What we really can't allow is to have somebody to come and interfere with our right, sovereign right to make decisions. And those decisions that don't have to be liked by his country because they are based on our consideration of justice, the International Convention against Genocide, which explicitly say you must prevent genocide. And the United States is a state party to that convention. We actually were not there, were colonized at that time when they adopted this convention.
Yeah.
We're just asking them to respect the convention they adopted. And that convention says, prevent genocide, don't aid it, don't abet it. And what is happening is that the major Western countries have been aiding and abetting it, and that is an action that is punishable by law. But they use power to make sure that they violate international law and no one can actually punish them. Then they put small countries like ourselves under pressure not to follow international law. And we say we have got the right to make the decisions. If the ambassador comes here to create a good relationship between us and the United States, he is fine, he's welcome. But he can't come here and dictate to us what we should think and what we should do, because we have the sovereign right to make the decisions we believe are correct.
And speaking of sovereignty, you have spoken about how that is being threatened, and you're calling on everyone, all the stakeholders included, to try and stand together to protect our sovereignty. How do you think that can be done?
Well, you know, we've done it before. Those who come from my generation in the United Democratic Front, we faced a similar onslaught here. It was an apartheid system aided and abetted by Western countries, including the United States, Britain, France, Germany. They even gave this country nuclear weapons. They assisted them to get nuclear weapons. And we took a stand and say it does not matter who is behind this. We have the right to fight for our freedom, and we fought for it. And we organized the people, region by region, sector by sector, street by street. I mean, we reached a stage where when I come back from work in Pimville, the community there will tell me what cars drove past that street and which cars slowed down when they came next to my house, so that we manage our security and interest. And indeed, the people's consciousness was high. We are really calling, because the South African chapter represents millions of South Africans. I mean, it's 2 federations, trade union federations, more than about 2 million, and other federations and trade unions that take you to 4 million. We've got the South African Council of Churches, the Evangelical Alliance, independent churches. We've got the Muslim fraternity. We've got the South African Jews for Palestine. We've got all of it in one organization. There's no larger organization than this. What we need is mobilization, organization, high level of consciousness to be able to communicate to the world that the ICJ, the International Court of Justice case, is not a case of the government. It is a case of the people of South Africa. And that's what we want to stand for, so the world knows, even the United States, that it's not the government, it is the people of South Africa who want justice to be done for Palestinians.
Reverend Frank Chikane, thank you so much for making time for us. And thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. We take you back now to the Ad Hoc Committee, as it's still, in fact, in session.
So do you